Do you want a professional looking finish? Then the secret is proper preparation. Whether it's stripping off wallpaper or sanding woodwork, putting the effort in at the start means you will end up with a better finish. Okay, so let's look at some of the products and some of the tools you'll need for this surface preparation. We start off with a pair of steps. These need to be high enough for the actual area you're working on to make yourself nice and comfortable and safe. Once we've got the steps, we then need to lay our dust sheets. We put our dust sheets down nice and neat in the area you're working on. If you've got wallpaper, obviously that wallpaper needs to be stripped, and the way we do that is with a nice bucket of warm water. Dampen the wallpaper with a brush. Leave it for a few minutes for the water to soak in, so it actually makes life much easier for you. If the wallpaper you are removing is a vinyl paper, before wetting the backing paper, remove the vinyl layer first. This will pull away very easily by finding an edge and just pulling away. No water needed. When wetting the background paper, take care when working around sockets. Turn off the electric supply before you do this. And then with a scraper, scrape off your wallpaper. Alternatively, if you're feeling a little bit flush and you fancy treating yourself, you can buy a steam stripper, and this will make removing wallpaper much easier. Once removing your wallpaper, this will reveal cracks and holes, and you need to fill these prior to going on to the decorating stage. And we would do that by using a choice of fillers: a powder filler, a quick drying filler, a fine surface filler. Once we've decided which one to use, we then look at the tools. If we're using the powder filler, we need a nice flexible filling knife, and this will actually give us a real nice finish prior to painting. Alternatively, if we've got small cracks on skirting boards and door frames, etc., maybe a putty knife would actually help us get a good finish there prior to painting. If you've got cracks and movement cracks on skirting boards and door frames, what you actually need to use there is a cork, a decorator's cork. And this is applied with a mastic gun, and basically we just break out the crack and fill it like so. If you've got skirting boards which is actually varnished or stained, you would need to use the brown. If it's a painted skirting board, you'd need the white. Once your filler is thoroughly dry, you are ready to rub down, and the most important thing maybe is to consider wearing a dust mask. This makes much more comfortable for yourself. So we recommend wearing a dust mask. And then when it comes to actually rubbing down, there are a variety of grades of paper, and generally the nearer or just before our final coat we actually use a finer grade of sandpaper. Alternatively, you could use a sanding block, and the benefits of sanding blocks are that you get a nice even rubbing down finish. Also, these are available in lots of different grades. So that just about completes what we need for our preparatory products. If in doubt with surface preparation, just pop into your local Dulux Decorator Centre, where the staff will be more than happy to supply you with the advice you need. We're now going to look at filling holes and cracks in ceilings and walls. And we're going to use our polyfiller powder filler. You'll notice that I'm actually going to be mixing this on the pasting table, but I have covered the table with newspaper because the last thing I want to do is actually get filler onto the table. So I'm going to be nice and clean and work clean. I've also picked a nice piece of plywood, nice and clean, to mix my filler up onto. So the first thing I'm going to do is to actually put an amount of filler onto the board. When mixing your polyfiller, just mix enough powder for the areas you need to fill. And with a nice creamy mixture, it will not shrink. You can then reseal your pack, store in a damp-free room, and it can then be reused on your next decorating project. Once I've got my powder on there, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick my scraper, and just with the end, just actually going to introduce a hole into the centre of the filler. So when I mix it, it's a little bit like mixing cement. I've got material, I've made a small hole in the centre, and I can add water and just mix it in. And the most important thing is that we don't get it too wet. and we just get a nice consistency. If you do get too much water in and it's too thin, you'll actually need to fill it twice because it shrinks. So at that stage, it's much easier just to add a little bit more powder and actually mix it back in until you get a nice creamy consistency. That way it won't shrink and you'll get a fantastic result. So that is the consistency you need. Just nice and heavy, nice and thick, and that is the material we're going to work with. All buildings will have various types of cracks. These could be movement cracks or hairline cracks. This is a typical example of that type of crack. However, what we do need to do is to actually, with the scraper, open out the crack to give us more of a surface area for the filler to stick to. So what I've done here is I've actually used the scraper, the edge of the scraper, to actually introduce a V shape into the crack, which will give me more of a surface area for the polyfiller to stick to. After raking out the crack, the next thing we need to do is just make sure we get rid of all the dust. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that crack, and for this I'm going to use a flexible bladed knife. My polyfiller ready to use. Push the filler deep into the crack, removing excess filler with the knife as you go along. If the hole is deep, you may need to build this up with 2 applications. Make sure you fill the whole crack top to bottom. When removing the excess filler with your knife, leave as level as possible, as this will reduce the amount of sanding down needed afterwards. Once filled, I need to leave that to dry before rubbing down, dusting off, and then painting. Okay, what we've got here is where a picture was hung, we've taken the screw out and it's obviously left a small hole here. What we need to do is fill that. So first of all I'm going to use my scraper and I'm going to soften the edges, and then with the same filler I've used to fill the cracks, I'm just going to put a nice amount of filler in there and allow it to dry and harden before we rub it down and paint. So you may remember earlier we spoke about the quick drying filler. This is a ready mixed version, and the beauty of this product is it's dry and hard and recoatable within 10 minutes. The idea is that you squeeze it onto the surface area and again just using your knife fill that area. In 10 minutes time, that'll be hard, dry enough to lightly rub down, and then paint. Ideal. Okay, our polyfiller is dry now, so what we do need to do before we start painting is to give it a light rub down, and I'm going to do that with a medium grade sandpaper. When rubbing down, don't forget to wear your mask, it's very important. So after rubbing down, we do need to dust off the surface because we don't want any bits into the paint, and we've now got a nice smooth surface to paint onto. Okay, we're now going to look at how to use decorator's cork. The idea of this product is that it's actually a flexible filler. So where it goes is on the top of skirting boards, around door frames, basically anywhere where there will be movement. And the idea is that this product actually moves with that movement. It comes with its own top, and one of the tips you need to take notice of is that when you cut this, you cut it at an angle, and also don't cut it too deep because otherwise you'll just get a lot of wasted product. I'm now going to use the decorator's cork, and the idea of this, as I said, is to go into the top of the skirting bottom of the wall, and we'll use it with a cork gun, just gentle pressure, and we're actually filling that gap as we go along, nice and slowly, nice and steady. And then it's sometimes easier to just work out of the corner as well, like so. Once we've done that, just click that button, which takes the pressure away from the top so it doesn't come all over your dust sheet. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a brush just to fill in nice and gently. And then finally, with a damp sponge, not too wet, just a damp sponge, just to clean up that surface. So that's caulking. What you now need to do is allow it to dry thoroughly, and then it's ready for painting. Okay, I'm now looking at preparing this 6-panel door. It's actually a little bit rough at this stage, so I really do need to give it a good rub down. For the flat areas, I'm using a medium grade sandpaper, and for the beadings, I'm actually going to be using a flexible sandpaper. When rubbing down, work your way from the top to the bottom, following the direction of the grain. Once completed, remember, dust off prior to painting. Okay, after rubbing down, it is a lot smoother, but what I really want to do is get a fantastic finish. To achieve that, I'm going to use our Polyfiller Fine Surface Filler, and this is actually used by just buttering the coat on. It's quite a nice soft product, so you just fill out the panels just as if you're buttering bread or buttering toast. I would certainly do all the main panels with this, and maybe the worst of the joints here. Once that's dry, a very light rub down, and that will give me a fantastic surface to put my undercoat on prior to my gloss. There are over 190 Dulux Decorator Centres, so for further advice and product information, call into your local store or visit our website www.duluxdecoratorcentre.co.uk, where you can also order online. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. This section shows you how to achieve a great looking finish on your ceilings and walls. So now we're going to look at the materials you need and also the tools that you need for painting walls and ceilings. We start off with a roller and a roller tray. So it's a roller arm and a roller tray. A useful accessory is a roller extension pole. And the benefit of this is that you can actually get up into your ceilings or the top parts of walls. Once you've got that equipment, you now need to actually decide which type of roller head you need. We've got 3 options here. So if I'm painting an Artex ceiling or a wood chip paper or something with a texture on, I would actually go for a medium to long pile roller. And the reason for that is because it's long pile, it follows the contours and you get a nice even coating on your ceiling or walls. If I've got a smooth wall and I want to keep them smooth, then we would recommend going for the short pile, which is this one, and that will actually give you a really good finish. So identify your surface, whether it be textured or smooth. That will actually then decide which roller sleeve you need to use. Another useful tool is a radiator roller, and this is fantastic for actually getting behind radiators, so for reaching the areas you can't reach with a brush. So that piece of equipment is very useful. And then finally, you do need a good quality brush, and the idea of this is that you cut in with the brush and then roll up to as you go around the room. So now let's look at the products you're going to need. The most common is a vinyl matte emulsion, and this will be Dulux Trade Vinyl Matte. If you wanted something with a slightly higher sheen, we have got Dulux Trade Soft Sheen. If you wanted something which was much more durable for knocks and things like that, it would be from the Diamond range. And if you wanted something to actually give you extra light, a dark room, small room, we would recommend Dulux Trade Light and Space, and this will give you 20% extra light. We're now ready to start painting our walls, and we've chosen the product and we've chosen the colour. In this case, we're using our Dulux Trade Vinyl Matte Emulsion. If you're having any problems or concerns with which product to use or which colour to use, just call into your local Dulux Decorating Centre, and the manager and the staff there are very knowledgeable and they will give you some really good helpful advice. So before we actually use the product, we do need to give it a really good stir. If your product has been stored for any length of time, it will have settled. So we do need to give it a good stir, and this will give you a nice consistency of paint and a nice even colour. What I'm doing now is I'm actually going to be painting the coving first with my white emulsion, 2-inch brush, and I'm actually bringing the paint over onto the ceiling by approximately 1.5 inches, like so. What I would suggest is going all the way around the coving first, and then actually finishing off with your roller to roll the flat of the ceiling. So not only do you bring the paint over onto the ceiling by 1.5 inches, but you also bring it down onto the wall by 1.5 inches. And what that will do is it will give me a nice edge to either cut into with my wall colour or to actually hang my paper to. Now I'm actually going to roll the flat part of the ceiling. And for this, I've chosen a short pile roller sleeve because I don't want too much texture on the ceiling. And another major benefit here is the roller pole. And the idea of this is it basically gives me the opportunity not to work off of steps, so it will A, be safer, and B, be faster. So the use of a roller pole is a great accessory for painting ceilings. Load your roller nice and evenly and work in areas of approximately 1 square metre across your ceiling. If you have light fittings, cut these in with your brush before rolling up to. So I've just done a basic quick demonstration, but when you're painting ceilings at home, especially with a roller, I think it'd be a good idea to wear some safety spectacles. We've rubbed the walls down, they're nice and smooth. We've laid our dust sheets, protecting our carpet. The next thing we need to consider is the steps, and we've got a pair which are tall enough so I can reach the top of the walls quite comfortably, sturdy enough and in the right position, so it makes me nice and comfortable when I'm working on them. What I'm going to do first of all is cut in, and I cut in with a 2-inch synthetic brush, and the reason we cut in is because if we actually roll the wall we can't get quite high enough, so I'm actually cutting in with a brush to get a nice crisp line at the bottom of the coving and at the top of the wall. What we do is we cut in maybe sort of a foot at a time, let the brush do the work, and what we're looking for is a nice crisp line, as I said, just underneath the coving. As the walls will generally need 2 coats, if your cutting in isn't clean or sharp enough, you can